we are going to go ahead and get started because you all showed up on time, and I want to respect our speakers' time as well. Kim, you're laughing at my like enlarged. I already have a large head, so I'm just like really feeling like the Superman character, like what's his name, like high up in the sky. So I might take myself off camera. We'll see how long I can do this. Thankfully, most of the people here don't seem to care about my pores. So we are going to get started. Good morning, everybody.
Diana, the audio is crappy, so we get. I don't know. Maybe you want to change headset.
I don't have another headset. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to stay off camera. I apologize, Don. But welcome everyone to the December meeting. We are so excited to have Don Cecil here. I've known Don for quite some time and have the utmost respect for him and his knowledge of what's happening in the world. So he has been providing public and government affairs consulting to corporations, public agencies, trade associations, nonprofits in the Bay Area for over 15 years. He's vice chair of the GR Government Relations at Chamber San Mateo County. He brings innovative and strategic thinking to his clients, and there's a large group of his clients on his bio, which is on the website. Prior to starting his own firm, he managed more than 30 successful campaigns for city council, board of supervisors, and the state assembly, as well as ballot measures. So we are so excited to have Don here with us. And before we do with introductions, Kim, did you want to go ahead and do your announcements?
Yes, thank you, Diana. First of all, thank you for joining us, Don. Really appreciate your contribution this morning. I just have 3 quick announcements. Today is election day for the Chamber of Commerce. So if you are the representative for your business or organization, please look for the email where you will be able to vote for the candidates for the Chamber Board of Directors. That will arrive in your inbox today. This is the last opportunity to participate in the Los Altos magazine and to turn in your artwork. So please contact our office to do so, to make payment, or to remit your artwork. And that will be coming out just in the first of the year in January. And then last but definitely not least, we will be hosting a holiday cocktail hour on December 18th. That's Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. at Redwood Grill. So please come and meet us there to share some holiday cheer and celebrate the Los Altos Chamber of Commerce. So I look forward to seeing you then. Redwood Grill at Rancho Shopping Center, 5 to 6 on Wednesday, December 18th. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're just going to do a really quick round of introductions, leaving our guests for last. So as usual, be prepared to take yourself off of mute. We're going to start with Tim.
Hey, good morning. Hi, Don. I'm the past chair for Los Altos Chamber of Commerce, and I work for Mission Trail Waste Systems.
Gary.
Good morning, Gary Hedden, active with an environmental group, Greentown Los Altos, the Los Altos History Museum, League of Women Voters, Affordable Housing Alliance, and I like to keep busy.
Dean.
Jean, past council member Jean Mordeau.
Apologies. Scott.
Yeah, you told me to be ready to go off mute, and then I forgot to do that. Hi, Scott Hunter, Executive Director of the Los Altos Village Association.
Marie.
Good morning, everyone. Marie Young, individual member of the chamber and just interested citizen.
And I'm sorry, Bridge 2. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, my name is Patrick, actually. So like Jean, maybe French like him. I don't know, Jean, you're French. So I'm a 20-year citizen of Los Altos Hills and enjoy the community in Los Altos.
Thank you. Christina.
Hi there, I'm Christina. I'm managing editor of the Los Altos Town Crier.
Awesome. And then, of course, we all know Kim, President and CEO of the Chamber. Listening in is Nicole, also with the Los Altos Chamber. And I'm Diana. I'm with Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, Stanford. and a member of the board for the Los Altos Chamber. So without further ado, Don, thank you so much for being here with us this morning and to share your wisdom. I know you're going to give us a quick overview of the 2024 general election. We know some things, but maybe we can dive a little bit deeper. Analysis of key races, measures, and state props. And what does this mean for local and state government? So the Zoom is yours.
All right. Thank you, Diana. I'm sitting outside of a cafe in San Francisco. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. First of all, let me thank you for being a part of the Los Altos Chamber of Commerce. As Diana mentioned, I sit on the board of Chamber San Mateo County, which covers Menlo Park, Redwood City, Belmont, and San Carlos. I'm also a member of several chambers in San Mateo County. And so this is really important work. And I thank everybody for being here and for allowing me to spend some time with you. I'm going to sort of go through a brief slide presentation, touch on some things that I hope are of interest to you, but I really want this to be a conversation. And I think I will hopefully learn some things from you on a micro level that I just haven't had the time to track. I would also like to say that I have a project that's beginning to take me down to your part of Santa Clara County. And I spent a lot of time at the State Street Market because they've got great Wi-Fi and really good restaurant options. And I'm so impressed with downtown Los Altos. What a great community. I'm so happy that it seemingly you survived the pandemic and those cruel shutdowns, necessary but cruel. And it's just thriving. I love downtown Los Altos. So thank you for all that you do to create a great space for me to come work remotely. So let me share my screen. And let's make this a presentation. So obviously, this is no surprise to anyone, but these are the most up-to-date results for the presidential national election. And for some people, this is really exciting. For some people, this still remains, a not so exciting outcome. I think it can feel like if you won on an amazing level. And if you didn't win, it was a gutting. And let's be clear, President-elect Donald Trump is to be congratulated on a winning campaign. But as these numbers come in and we're really close to this all finalizing, you had just about 75 million votes for Vice President Harris, about 77 million votes for former President Trump. The difference between them is just under 2.3 million voters. So I think one of the things that we all have to look at as members of our chambers, members of our communities, there's a whole discussion going on at a national level, but it is a fairly even discussion amongst 160 million voters. What really caused this change is the subject of people much smarter than I am, diving into the numbers, looking at turnout, slicing and dicing from a precinct level to a county level. But in broadest of strokes, the Trump campaign flipped every swing state that Biden won in 2020. And that's a really oversimplification of what happened, but it's certainly one of the things that I look to for. That was a winning campaign strategy, and it worked. Now coming down to Santa Clara County. So in this November 2024 election, it looks like turnout is going to settle right at just under 73%. What does that mean? It's 765,495 voters casting a ballot out of a total of just over 1 million possible registered voters. How that 72.99 compares to 2020, much less. And 2026, even much less. And this is another sort of trend that people are seeing and dissecting, and there's lots of making crystal balls going on right now. But turnout dropped pretty significantly, almost universally across the country. This is just a comparison of how the statewide ballot measures did on the left statewide, and then in the right column in Santa Clara County. And so except for Prop 32, which did not pass statewide in California, but did pass in Santa Clara County, the results were quite similar. The yeses on the state side are very consistent with the yeses on the county side, except for that one Prop 32. And this is not unique to Santa Clara County. Many of the bluer, urban counties did vote in favor of raising the minimum wage, but on the statewide level, it just didn't. Key races, and I've picked a couple here. Of course, we have the race to replace our longtime and for me beloved Representative Anna Eshoo. Sam Ricardo winning this race solidly, 58.2% to Evan Lowe at 41.8%. Sam won handily in both counties. Actually won more in a greater percentage in San Mateo County than he did in Santa Clara County. But this was a high profile race, attracted a lot of money, attracted a lot of support. Obviously coming out of the primary, had that very contentious, basically three-way split, so to speak, with the recount and our longtime public servant Joe Simidian, not making it into a runoff at San Ricardo. When you look though, this is a map provided by the Registrar of Voters. Anything in light blue is a precinct within the 16th Congressional District that was won by Sam Ricardo. Anything in light green is a precinct won by Evan Lowe. There are these unique statistical ties in small precincts with low vote numbers. Sam won this across the board, and a large swath of this district is in the city of San Jose, but he competed everywhere and in every city and in every community. You had two seats up for up on the Board of Supervisors. One was to replace longtime County Supervisor Joe Simidian in District 5, which covers Los Altos. And then you had District 2 in San Jose for longtime County Supervisor, former San Jose City Council member Cindy Chavez. Betty and Margaret both won. Margaret had a decisive win in this campaign. Not to say that Betty's wasn't decisive, but Margaret came very close to a 60% win. And I would have to say, again, similar to what we saw in Sam versus Evan, Margaret is light blue in the precincts that she won. Sally is light green in the precincts that she won. And my hat is off to Margaret. She ran one of the best campaigns I've seen run in a very long time, from endorsements to raising money to attracting support and just working really, really hard. Now we get to the city of Los Altos in your city council race. And you had, as you all know, your incumbents, Sally Meadows and Jonathan Weinberg, solidly reelected. Larry Lang came in third. Mr. Bashir, despite having raised a lot of money for a city council race in any city, but especially a city the size of Los Altos, coming in fourth. And I think what's most interesting to me about these results are the ranking of the candidates here are who got the most votes down to Eric getting the least number of votes. This list of how candidates came in first through fifth is consistent across every precinct in the town of Los Altos. Sometimes you'll see, where the first and the second place are very consistent. The third and fourth place may toggle back and forth depending on the location of the city or a precinct here or there. These results were very consistent. The order that you see people winning overall is the same order that you see them winning in every precinct. And then other races across the county, basically I stuck to North County for the most part, outside of the city of San Jose, but under the guise of every vote counts. And I know I've seen this, I'm sure many of you have seen this. I've seen people win or lose by a single vote. And so in Palo Alto, you had two planning commissioners aligned philosophically on the subject of growth and development. Keith Reckdahl narrowly edging out Doria Suma by 12 votes. 12 votes. It's pretty amazing. You had a YIMBY planning commissioner, George Liu, solidly elected in second place, joining incumbents Pat Burt and Greer Stone, who will return to the Palo Alto City Council. In Cupertino, another place that is no stranger to fights over growth and development, Rod Sinks was winning on election night, but when all the votes were counted, Ray Wang beat him by 63 votes, and he will join Kitty Moore, who's an incumbent returning to that city council in Cupertino. And the predictions are that the 3-2 majority that exists on the city council right now, that has been more open to growth and development, Valco, such as, will now potentially swing back to a 3-2 with the majority being more skeptical of development. It was a good night for incumbents in Mountain View. And I mean that literally for Pat Showalter and Emily Ramos, who were reelected, and also Chris Clark and John McAllister, who have both served on the city council previously. Mountain View has a term limit ordinance that allows council members to take a term off, so to speak, and run to come back on the city council. And that's what Chris and John have done. And it's not as though there weren't qualified candidates also running in addition to these four. You had the school board president running, you had a popular city commissioner running. So it's, each city is different. In Santa Clara, it's a good night for the 49ers. They spent $2 million in this election cycle, and they were successful in getting Kevin Park and Seb Streams reelected to the city council. They also backed Albert Gonzalez, who was running in the same district as Anthony Becker, who's the subject of a trial literally as we speak. However, Kelly Cox in another one of the districts is not the 49ers' favorite candidate, so she will join Lisa Gilmore in their efforts related to city functions and the 49ers. In San Jose, Mayor Mahan will increase his sort of loose business aligned majority a little bit with the addition of Michael Mulcahy and George Casey. Incumbent Domingo Candelas, who was appointed previously to that city council, held on to that seat. He is considered to be a little more labor aligned. And then Pamela Campos, who was endorsed by the Labor Council, also won in her district. Sunnyvale, I find Sunnyvale fascinating. No surprise that Larry Klein and Alyssa Cisneros were both easily reelected. Larry is mayor, Alyssa in her city council district. Charles C. Chang ran unopposed for her district. And then Eileen Lee handily won in her district. She's currently a trustee on the Sunnyvale School Board. That's no surprise. Jessica Spicer and Grace Ma. I didn't track this race that closely. I would love to be educated a little bit on this. I'm certainly aware of the drama that's unfolding with the Board of Education and the decision to get rid of the longtime superintendent of education in Santa Clara County. I did see a lot of Jessica signs, not that signs win anybody a race, but it's something to look at. And then really kind of finally winding this up, despite what we've been reading, what we've been hearing, the postmortems and the murky crystal balls on the impact the economy had at the national level in swinging some of these swing states for Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, so on and so forth, at least in Santa Clara County, and it's actually quite consistent around the Bay Area, school district measures all doing very, very well. Parcel taxes, which still require a 2/3 majority, will be passing in every district that had one in Santa Clara County. And then all the school bond measures, there's a couple I didn't include here, which are shared with San Benito County. But for all of these school bond measures, they are passing. And if you're curious, I did in fact total these up. So this November, voters across Santa Clara County approved $2.566 billion in school bond infrastructure ballot measures. pretty astonishing. And I will stop sharing.
Excuse me. Thank you, Don. That was really, really informative, the breakdown of it. Do we have any questions from the group? So I'm going to start. Don, with the trend, it seems with less voters voting, what does that mean? This was a huge election. I mean, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe people were tired or they kind of assumed something was going to happen. Like, do you think this is a trend of less voters voting, or is it just because this was just too crazy of an election?
I mean, Diana, that's my murky crystal ball. You know, I think the turnout is less. And there's never any one reason why someone wins or loses, why they come in first or third. What I would say is the national election is probably the greatest determinant of the overall turnout at a national level, at a state level, at a county level. So for some reason, you had more Democrats stay home because they were not as excited about the Harris-Walz ticket. They were conflicted about possibly supporting a Democrat, but also being more concerned about the economy. I mean, there's unless you do exit polling, there's really no way to know for sure. But I think it's a combination of things. This was a rough election cycle. The economy was certainly top of mind for people. I think you will find, and we'll use the district supervisor races, there was a greater turnout in District 5, and I would attribute that to a variety of things versus District 2. And then District 2 is sort of downtown San Jose, East San Jose. So contrasting those two districts, District 2 in San Jose is much more ethnically diverse, has greater socioeconomically disadvantaged census tracts and precincts than in District 5. Betty worked just as hard as Margaret. Betty probably had the Labor Council in Santa Clara County working harder to get her elected over Madison Nguyen. You had two Vietnamese women running against each other in the district that encompasses one of the largest Vietnamese populations outside of Vietnam. Yet you had fewer people per capita vote than you did in District 5. District 5 is wealthier, better educated. So it all comes down to sometimes how actively did those campaigns work to turn people out? How motivated were people to actually show up and vote? I'm going to stop rambling here.
Thank you.
I do not see the demise of turnout in the state of California because this particular election cycle had a lower turnout.
Okay, that's good. So I'm only thinking about off-year elections and what those are always low attended anyway. But Don, what we hear a lot about some of the folks, and I admit I don't know a lot about the other candidates, but in overall, was there an election for any pro-growth, like pro-housing, or is it more of a slow the business development? Like, was there anything that kind of jumped out on you on that side?
I think if you look at Mountain View, you have the existing incumbents, Pat Showalter and Emily Ramos. Emily is a strong housing advocate. She's if you think of the younger YIMBY candidates that we've seen running and having some success, Emily is an example of a YIMBY candidate who she was appointed, but she retained that seat on the city council. Google is obviously a very large property owner and employer in the city of Mountain View. And I think when you look at the 4 candidates that were elected this November, all of them have found a way to strike a balance between quality of life, supporting growth and development in places like North Bayshore, not giving it away to Google, but certainly appreciating the impact that major employers and large property owners have in Mountain View. And so I think that's a city that's signaling it feels like it's on the right path with balancing housing, growth, development, quality of life. Palo Alto, I find really fascinating because, again, to make a hasty generalization, we'll sort of refer to them as these younger YIMBY candidates. They've been trying for a while to get pro-housing candidates elected to the city council. And 2 years ago, that really started with Julie Lipcott-Hames, an avid and unapologetic housing supporter elected to the city council. It's important to remember that in both Mountain View, Los Altos, and Palo Alto, unlike many other cities which have moved to district elections, these communities still elect their city council members citywide. So in Palo Alto, you had George Liu, who was sort of one of at least 3 or 4 self-described pro-housing candidates running for city council. No surprise that Pat Burt and Greer Stone were solidly reelected. George Liu coming actually in second is a surprise. And I think it's a testament to a good campaign, a good message, having a solid book of work as a planning commissioner. And that, I have seen Palo Alto sometimes at the threat of the state of California, but also I think in a very meaningful way, as I've watched that city council, they're trying to find a way to build more housing. They're trying to find a way to build more affordable housing. So it doesn't surprise me that George was elected. It surprises me that he came in second, but I think it's a testament to the fact that in Palo Alto, there has been a real paradigm shift in how they think about being open to housing and especially affordable housing.
Thank you. And speaking of electeds, I want to welcome Councilmember Ellen Kamei from City of Mountain View. Kathy, I saw your hand raised, but John was first, so I'm going to go with John.
Thanks, Diana. Nice to see you, Don. Thanks. Really interesting.
Nice to see you, John.
Really interesting presentation. Sorry to be a couple minutes late there. I just wanted to ask, so in the East Bay, we saw, particularly in Oakland and the DA's race, kind of recall around like quality of life concerns and crime. And obviously, we're in a very different environment here, but then anecdotally, like people will talk more about like, oh, more car break-ins or more, kind of petty crime or just, kind of more of that quality of life type stuff that people notice. And I was just kind of curious if you think there is an undercurrent in our region that's just kind of bubbling that maybe didn't surface in this election, but might surface in a future election, because to your point about incumbents, so many incumbents were elected and it seemed like it was more, housing or things like that were really where people's interests were focused.
Nothing has changed about the power of incumbency. So it's name recognition, it's the ability to attract high profile endorsements. It usually comes with an ability to raise more money and also to raise it faster than newcomers. That name ID is really important. But then you have situations where if it gets bad enough, or there are circumstances that are high profile enough, incumbency becomes the disadvantage. So in Oakland, Oakland has a consistent set of issues that have existed long before the current mayor was recalled. But you layer on top of that scandal, FBI, FBI raids, constant headlines. In San Francisco, I have a new mayor now, Daniel Lurie. My first vote, because we have ranked choice voting, please don't go there. My first vote was certainly for London Breed. Why? Because my mother was vaccinated for COVID in 30 minutes at Moscone Center, 30 days apart, with her first 2 vaccination injections. So I am forever grateful to Mayor Breed and her staff in facilitating my mother getting those 2 first vaccinations. But Daniel Lurie is my second vote because I, as a San Francisco voter, am kind of fed up with it too. I live in a great neighborhood that does not have these problems, but sometimes it's just too much, right? And sometimes the incumbents either are perceived to or legitimately blamed for things, and people are willing to try something new. I think Matt Mahan may be an example of that as well. When you think about the last mayor's race in San Jose, Matt had a very focused message about homelessness and affordable housing. And these are the issues that people really want our elected officials to solve, right? We want people to have a place that's safe and clean and affordable. And we want to find the balance between people who are unhoused and our own quality of life and perception of safety.
We are going to go to Gary and then Kathy.
I'm always interested in the role of money in politics. And locally, we had Ibrahim Bashir raised a lot of money, and you said he lost despite raising the money. I'm wondering if it's because he raised a lot of money. And then we also had Grace Ma, who lost, even though she got a lot of money, out of state money in particular, according to Jessica Spicer. So is that across the board? Is money a good thing? Probably it is, but in those two cases, it didn't do the job.
Yeah. Let me start with this. I think money is something that the average voter isn't thrilled about, but is aware of. Like, we understand it takes money to run campaigns, and candidates are out, they're raising money, they're disclosing it, filing it. Our local newspapers, I think, do a good job of covering the different filing periods and who's giving what and how much. It takes more than money, right? So just like getting the endorsement of the San Jose Mercury News is important, right? If you're running for San Jose City Council, but it's really dependent on who picks up the newspaper that day, goes to the editorial section and reads that Don Cecil has been endorsed by the Mercury News for District 15. Where the money comes in is I now need to raise the money so that I can do a piece of direct mail to the voters in my district, reprinting that endorsement. Because you can't rely on people at the water cooler saying, hey, did you read that great endorsement of Don? Or saving the newspaper until they fill out their ballot. So the money piece of it is very important. You can raise too much money. And again, I'm not intimately familiar with your Los Altos race, but you are a community that is intimate enough and still retains that sort of, I really am going to say small town charm. You're a city, but I still think you're the kind of community where people will still come up to the council members at Safeway downtown or, sort of anywhere and tug on your sleeve and say, hey, great job, or, I'm really disappointed. So I think at an intimate level, if people are talking about this in a negative way, that can certainly have an impact. Someone can certainly raise too much money, but I'll give you the flip side of that. This is the second election cycle where the 49ers have spent millions of dollars in support of their candidates. And one might expect the average voter to be outraged by that spending, but it hasn't borne out in the election results.
Yeah, that's an odd one.
Yeah.
So interesting about Bashir, he also got the endorsement of the town crier. So with all that money plus the endorsement, he still didn't make it.
Each thing is important, but each thing in and of itself is often not enough. You need a collection of things, right? You need to be experienced and qualified.
Yep.
You need to be likable. If you get the town crier's endorsement, are you able to boost that, make sure people know about it? And I think the town crier is one of these examples of, sort of local newspapers that we need to continue to cherish, right?
For sure.
And we've got some of these in San Mateo County, and there's a few left in Santa Clara County. I also think voters are smart. Some people like to dismiss voters as not paying attention or, not sort of just kind of not being smart. I do think voters are smart. And I think they are particularly attuned most to the levels of government that have the direct impact on their quality of life. City council, school boards, And then you sort of go up from there. Not that people don't care who's governor or they don't care who's a county supervisor or on the Board of Equalization, but like, you know, are you going to sweep the streets? Are the trees getting trimmed? Am I, tripping over the crack in the sidewalk? Like, people care what happens
They
at
do.
town council meetings.
Yep, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Don. This is fascinating. I would say one of my biggest concerns, and this has been a concern that's grown over the years. I've actually never missed voting in an election since I was able to vote, but I'm seeing a tremendous number of even my friends, people who are involved in town and care a lot, just not making that effort to vote. And it's so simple today with the mail-in ballots and everything. I'm wondering, what we're seeing here locally, is that similar to across the country? And then how do we, or has any area been successful motivating voters to just show up and vote?
Great observations and questions. Turnout was definitely down across the entire country. And, again, there are big brains who are looking at this on a national level. My gut is there are people who really feel like they are left out of the process. And, over the last couple of years, every time I filled up my gas tank, I thought to myself, that's expensive, but I can afford it. Every time I go to the little grocery store in my neighborhood and I fill up that little green basket, like just the tiny green basket, and it's a couple $100, I'm thinking to myself, that's really expensive. And I think we had a lot of people who are trying to figure out how to split a $20 bill between their gas tank and the dinner table. And I am not going to judge those people for choosing their economic future over everything else in this election cycle, or for just staying home because they kind of feel powerless in a situation where everyone's telling them things are getting better, inflation's going down, but that $20 bill is still having to be split between the gas tank and the dinner table. I do not see it as the erosion of our democracy. I think our democracy is going to be stress tested in some pretty significant ways in the next 2 to 4 years, but I'm not ready to call the time of death on the democracy at any level of government. But turnout is something that our leaders really need to be focused on. There are ways that levels of government can do public education and really remind people about the importance of voting. And as simple as it is to get that ballot in the mail, that ballot quickly goes to the bottom of a stack of mails. So I don't have the answer for you. I agree with you, it's a concern, Kathy, but I am more hopeful than not.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Don. Are there other questions or comments? Oh, Gary.
On the turnout question, I'm curious, was it across the board, both parties and independents dropping?
Gary, I'm not as knowledgeable about this on a national level. I do believe, though, that Republicans held steady on average with their turnout, and it was Democrats who had a lower turnout on a national level.
Okay.
And, when you look at, hold on one second. One second here. So this might be a little bit small. Let me try and bump this a little bit. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
So in every state, you had Republicans won a larger share of the votes in 2024 as compared with 2020. And it's, again, I think sometimes it's easy to think that we have this massive shift from one side of the ideological thinking to the other. It was actually a series of rather small shifts in most places, and then these interesting shifts in places like New York, New Jersey, even California. So you had more people voting Republican in every state in the union, but sometimes it was 0.31%. But in the case of New York, 6.43% more New Yorkers voted for a Republican presidential candidate than the Democratic candidate when you compare 2024 to 2020. I think that the working sentiment on this is certainly it was the economy, and people prioritized their own economic situation over other things. So voting for Donald Trump could indicate that they believe he'll do a better job in improving the economy and their own personal economic standing. It doesn't mean that they're not concerned about a woman's reproductive rights or that they're not concerned about the war in Ukraine. It's just that, it's the economy is stupid. An old quote from a presidential election cycle gone by.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But I think it's the one thing that people think about every day. What is my economic standing? How are my kids going to do better than I'm doing? It's complicated.
Yep. And ironically, if we get the tariffs, it might backfire.
I think the people that need the economy to improve the most are the most at risk of being disappointed.
Yeah.
I saw a map earlier in like November where it was California, and it was practically split down the middle, where the side closest to the water voted more blue, and the other side, the more non-water side, voted more red. And I thought that was very interesting. So I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Gary, you took yourself off mute.
Yeah, there were some really tight races in the Central Valley. I know Josh Harder, he won, but it was tough and nip and tuck.
Absolutely.
Okay. This was interesting. Any other questions or comments for Don?
So Diana, let me just share my screen really quick here to reinforce what you've said. So this is the statewide map of the presidential election. And so all the blue, Bay Area, Coast Side, LA, Orange County, San Diego County, and then a collection of three sort of inner counties. Blue was for Kamala Harris. And then, not too dissimilar from the national map, where the edges are blue and the inside is red, or orange in this case.
Fascinating. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, we won't keep you hostage any longer, Don. Really appreciate you taking the time, talking this with us. I think we all to walk away with something to chew on for sure. Anything else you want to close on, Don?
Again, thank you for having me. I'll be on the lookout for any of you when I'm catching Wi-Fi at State Street Market, and I'll have to venture out and explore some of the other spots to eat in downtown Los Altos. So everyone have a wonderful holiday season, and thanks for inviting me today.
Thank you. And check out the Los Altos directory. Check out chamber members. So on
I
that
will.
note, everyone, happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate, I hope you have a joyful one. And this is it for the year. We will see you next year. Join us at the various mixers and events.
Hey,
And
Diana,
without, yeah.
since we got a couple of minutes, you mentioned that ranked choice don't go there.
Oh, me.
Yeah, speak a little bit more about that. I always thought it was kind of a clever idea.
That was me as a biased San Francisco voter. It honestly, Gary, has taken me 15 years to really understand what ranked choice voting
I
is.
see, too complicated.
It's very complicated. And the complication isn't vote for the top 3 or rank all 10 candidates that you have an option to. It's sort of understanding how it works. And if something feels complicated, then it's just kind of a barrier to entry. I forced myself to figure out how it works this year in San Francisco. I was thoughtful about my first, second, and third choices. I was at peace if choice 1 or 2 won. I'm fine with that. I just think in the guise of how do we make sure people participate and we have high voter turnout, if a city or a county is going to move to something like ranked choice voting, that decision has to come with real financial resources that will be committed to voter education so that people understand how this works.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. On that note, happy holidays and enjoy it. See you all next year. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.